Rangers Football Club is not just one of Scotland's most famous football teams. It is one of the most decorated clubs anywhere in the world, a name tied to trophies, tradition, identity, rivalry, and one of the most dramatic modern stories in British football. Based in Glasgow, Rangers compete in the Scottish Premiership, the top level of Scottish football, and are instantly recognisable in royal blue. Many people casually call the club Glasgow Rangers, but that has never been its official name. The official identity is simpler and older: Rangers Football Club. To understand why the club matters so deeply to so many people, you have to look beyond league tables. Rangers is a story of Victorian beginnings, massive crowds, European nights, fierce local competition, financial crisis, and a climb back from the bottom tier of Scottish football. The origins of Rangers go back to March 1872, making the club the fourth oldest football club in Scotland. Its founding story has an almost informal, almost accidental quality. Four teenage boys were walking through West End Park, now known as Kelvingrove Park, when they discussed forming a football club. Football at the time was still young, developing its rules, structures, and culture. Clubs were often built by groups of friends, students, workers, or local communities rather than by wealthy owners or corporate investors. Rangers' first recorded match came just a few months later, in May 1872, against Callander, a club that no longer exists. That game took place at Flesher's Haugh on Glasgow Green, a public space that played an important role in early Scottish football. From those modest beginnings, Rangers grew into a national institution. Rangers' home is Ibrox Stadium, one of the most important football grounds in Scotland. The modern stadium opened in 1929 and was designed by Archibald Leach, the celebrated stadium architect whose work shaped many famous British football grounds. Ibrox is a Category B listed building, a recognition of its architectural and historic significance. It is also Scotland's third largest football stadium, which reflects the scale of Rangers' support and ambition. Stadiums are more than places where matches happen, they are physical symbols of a club's memory. Ibrox has hosted triumphs, heartbreaks, title celebrations, European nights, and generations of supporters. For Rangers fans, the stadium is a landmark of identity. The stands, the royal blue colours, and the matchday atmosphere all help turn a football club into something that feels permanent. The most straightforward way to describe Rangers' importance is through its trophy record. The club has won the Scottish League title 55 times, the Scottish Cup 34 times, and the Scottish League Cup a record 28 times. It has also won the domestic treble 7 times, meaning League, Scottish Cup, and League Cup in the same season. These numbers are not just statistics, they show how consistently Rangers have operated at the summit of Scottish football across different eras. Winning once can be a great moment. Winning repeatedly over more than a century requires structure, expectation, and a culture where success becomes the standard. Rangers built its reputation on that expectation. Every season is judged against a history of winning, and that history creates both pride and pressure for players, managers, and supporters. Rangers' history is not limited to Scotland. The club has also played a major role in European competition. In 1961, Rangers became the first British club to reach a UEFA tournament final, losing in the European Cup Winners' Cup. The club reached the same final again in 1967, but once more finished as runner-up. Then, in 1972, Rangers finally lifted the European Cup Winners' Cup, defeating Dynamo Moscow in Barcelona. That victory remains one of the defining achievements in the club's history. European trophies carry a different weight because they place a domestic club on an international stage. For Rangers, the 1972 success confirmed that the club could compete beyond Scotland and leave a mark on continental football. Even decades later, that night remains central to the mythology of Rangers. European football has also brought Rangers deep disappointment. The club reached the UEFA Cup final in 2008, losing to Zenit St. Petersburg in Manchester. 14 years later, in 2022, Rangers reached another major European final, the UEFA Europa League final, against Eintracht Frankfurt in Seville. That match ended in heartbreak after a penalty shootout. These finals matter because they show Rangers' ability to produce remarkable European campaigns even when competing from a league with fewer financial resources than the biggest European divisions. Reaching a final can redefine a season, energize a fanbase, and remind the wider football world of a club's scale. For Rangers supporters, 2008 and 2022 were painful, but they also proved something important. The club still had the reach, support, and competitive force to command attention across Europe. No discussion of Rangers can avoid the old firm rivalry with Celtic. These two Glasgow clubs form one of the most intense football rivalries in the world. On the pitch, the rivalry is about league titles, cups, city pride, and historic dominance. Off the pitch, it carries much deeper social and cultural meanings. Rangers and its fanbase have historically been associated with Protestantism and British Unionism, while the rivalry with Celtic has long been linked to sectarian divisions in Glasgow and beyond. This history makes the old firm more than a football derby. It is a fixture loaded with identity, memory, and tension. The scale of attention around these matches is enormous because the result often feels bigger than 3 points. It can shape a season, define managers, and echo through the city. A difficult part of Rangers' history is the club's former policy toward Catholic players and staff. From the First World War until the late 1980s, Rangers had a policy of refusing to employ Catholic players and staff. This is an essential fact in understanding the club's place within the social history of Scottish football. It reflected and reinforced sectarian divisions that affected Glasgow for generations. Football clubs often present themselves through trophies, legends, and iconic matches, but their histories can also contain exclusion and controversy. A serious explanation of Rangers must include both. The end of that policy marked a significant change, but the legacy of sectarianism has continued to influence how people discuss the old firm, fan culture, and Scottish football's broader social responsibilities. Rangers' story includes glory, but also uncomfortable history. Rangers' fanbase is one of the largest and most visible in world football. The club has more than 600 supporters clubs across 35 countries, showing how far its identity extends beyond Glasgow. This global network matters because it turns Rangers from a local institution into an international community. The scale of traveling support has been especially striking. In 2008, an estimated 200,000 Rangers fans arrived in Manchester for the UEFA Cup final, a figure often cited as the largest traveling support in football history. In 2022, around 100,000 supporters traveled to Seville for the Europa League final. Those numbers illustrate both devotion and logistics on an extraordinary scale. Supporters who travel in those numbers transform host cities, create huge public gatherings, and show why Rangers' influence cannot be measured only by match results. For most of its existence, Rangers seemed like a permanent fixture at the top of Scottish football. The club was one of the 11 original members of the Scottish Football League and remained in the top division continuously for more than a century. That stability was shattered during the 2011-12 season, when a financial crisis led the club into administration. The original company was later liquidated, and the club's assets moved into a new company structure. In football terms, the consequences were enormous. Rangers were accepted as an associate member of the Scottish Football League and placed in the fourth tier for the start of the next season. For a club associated with dominance, trophies, and elite competition, beginning again in the lower divisions was a historic and shocking fall. The lower league years became one of the defining chapters of modern Rangers history. The club had to work its way back through the Scottish football pyramid, winning 3 promotions in 4 years before returning to the Premiership for the 2016-17 season. This period was not just a sporting journey, it was a test of identity. Rangers had the fanbase, stadium, and history of a giant, but it was playing against clubs operating in a completely different financial and competitive world. Each promotion moved the club closer to where supporters believed it belonged. During that climb, Rangers also became the only club in Scotland to have won every domestic trophy. The return to the top flight did not erase the collapse, but it created a powerful rebirth narrative around the club. Rangers' comeback reached a symbolic peak in the 2020-21 season, when the club won its first Scottish championship in 10 years. It was also the club's 55th league title, a then world record total. The victory had added significance because it stopped Celtic's attempt to break the domestic record of 9 consecutive league titles. In that moment, multiple layers of Rangers' history collided: the trophy tradition, the old firm rivalry, the memory of financial collapse, and the long road back from the 4th tier. That is why Rangers F.C. remains such a compelling subject. It is a club built on extraordinary success, shaped by rivalry and social history, scarred by crisis, and revived through persistence. Rangers is not merely a football team in Glasgow. It is one of the game's most dramatic institutions. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.